What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Hawaii. I just bought this little 11-gallon air compressor off of a Facebook website, and I just kind of wanted to walk you through, what you should be looking for before you buy a used air compressor. So the first thing I like to look at, if it's an oiled compressor like this one is, don't waste your time on an oilless. Those things are loud and not very powerful usually. If it is oiled, check the oil level. And you might have to use a flashlight to look in there. And you can just barely see right here that there's a little air bubble. So that means that's where the level is. And you can kind of tip it and see, yep, that's the oil level right there. I don't know if that's showing up on the camera, guys, but so it does have oil, which is good. If it didn't, you might want to steer clear of it. Also, another thing is this, you might not be able to actually see through this. It might be really gummed up. If you can't see through it, you might be taking kind of a risk. It just kind of depends on the price. But if you start it up there and it runs and doesn't make any weird noises, take it. If it doesn't have oil, just do an oil change and you should be fine. The next thing to look at is this valve. It'll be down at the bottom. This is to drain the water out of the tank itself so it doesn't rust out from the inside out. This is kind of something that will tell you how the previous owner took care of the compressor. If the tank's all full of water, you can tell that they didn't really have any pride of ownership of it, and it might be rusty, especially if the water is rusty at all. Just do not buy the compressor, So to check this, all you gotta do, there's a few different styles. All you gotta do is just open this up with the tank pressurized, and it should blow out any water that it's in there, any moisture. So we open that up, and if it was pressurized, a lot more would be coming out, a lot more air. And you can see a couple water droplets came out of this. I've already opened it, and there was just barely any water, and it wasn't nasty at all. I live in Hawaii, so it's always going to have a little bit of water in it because of the humidity. So if a gallon of water comes out, I would kind of refrain from buying it. But this, hardly any water came out, so that tells you that the person took care of it. So the next thing we're going to look at is this pressure relief valve. The way these work is if the tank pressure gets too high, this pin will pop out and vent the air out of these holes on the side. This is very important that it works. So the way to test that is with it pressurized, just pull out on the pin and it should stay open for a short amount of time. This is a pretty important safety feature, so make sure that it's working. To stop it from venting, you just have to tap it. Next, we're gonna look at the gauges and the regulator. You can tell that this one sat outside or was used in the rain because you can see that there at some point was water in there, and there's kind of a rusty stain on the lens. As long as they work, they should be fine. If they don't, you can always replace them. They're pretty cheap. The way that you want to see if these work is to turn the compressor on and watch it climb. It shouldn't go past whatever it's rated for. You can see right here there's a faded red danger zone there. Look at what the compressor's rated for, and if it's going above that, beware. You might have to adjust what's going on in here, or your gauge might be broken. This gauge tells you the pressure that's in the tank, and this gauge tells you the pressure that's coming out of this outlet here, and the regulator adjusts what's coming out of the outlet. The regulator doesn't adjust the pressure in the tank. It just lowers the pressure coming through here and coming out here so you can adjust it. You want to make sure your regulator works by completely backing it out. That should be 0 psi. Plugging something in and running it. Make sure that it's at 0 psi. And then with no air coming out, just gradually twist this regulator and you should see the pressure climbing. And again, with it all the way in, it should be the exact same pressure that this one's reading. You also want to make sure that your on-off switch works. So while it's still pressurizing, because it will turn off on its own if it's at high pressure and you won't be able to test this, while it's pressurizing, just flip this toggle switch. It should be right on the control here. Should be able to go off and on. And if you switch that and it doesn't turn off, there's something wrong in here. Or if you switch it on and it doesn't turn on, then you probably shouldn't buy the compressor. Another thing to do is to check all of the fittings and make sure nothing's leaking. That includes the valve on the bottom. You can go around and just put your ear to it and listen. Or you can go with a spray bottle with soapy water in it and just kind of spray around on all these joints and make sure that there's no air bubbles coming out. If there is, that's an easy fix. I wouldn't say that you shouldn't buy it if it is leaking. Another thing to look at is the air cleaner. You can see that this one's missing it. What the air cleaner does is clean the air. There should be a fitting coming out to something bigger, and that should have, some kind of filter in it. Open that up and look inside and see how dirty it is. If it's really filthy, you'll know that you have to buy a new one, and that also might affect the performance of the compressor. If you have a really dirty filter, it's obviously going to suck in air slower than it should. So that might be one of the first things that you replace. I'm going to have to buy a whole new one. Shouldn't be a deal breaker though. Well guys, I hope this video answered any questions you might have had. If you have any more, leave them in the comments down there. If you liked the video, please rate, comment, and subscribe. And stay tuned, I'm gonna make another video about how to change the oil on your compressor. Thanks for watching.